So today we're going to talk about the Brazilian real and a little bit about unit conference, anything that you guys want to ask. I'm going to open for questions in, let's say, 15, 17 minutes, okay? The last like 5 minutes, since we are a little late. So the session will start on time because there is more people to come in this room. So the Brazilian real, how unit can help people not depend exclusively on fiat currencies controlled by corrupt governments. I put it together a little history of Brazil. My point is for people who don't know anything about Brazil to understand that Brazilian history is a tale of exploration and exploitation. Since Brazil was the indigenous land of what it is now, the country of Brazil was found, that's what have been happened. Portuguese, Europeans of other countries and other more advanced economically nations use the country for its many resources. And it's one of the most rich countries in natural resources. I'm going to go fast in this point because we have less time. So a little history of money. In 1942, Brazil had 8 different currencies. Since 1982, Brazil had 8 different currencies. That's just to show you guys how changing currencies is the way that the government has been trying to improve the economy and haven't been working so well. In the late 80s, early 90s, the hyperinflation forced consumers to run to supermarkets as soon as they received their wages and spend cash before that currency lost power. Supermarkets in that time had to change the price tags in the products like 3 times a day. And what would happen is what we saw happening with COVID recently. The shelves were completely empty because people would buy everything that they could in terms of food without thinking about the next person that would need the same product that day. Companies' daily businesses were challenging as it became tricky to anticipate production costs and just to decide how much to charge for your services. So in 1993, another currency was being prepared to be launched. At that time, 2,500% was the annual rate of the inflation in the country. That's the year when the real, the coin that we're going to talk about it, was introduced to the Brazilian people. And it was a very successful new currency. It was pegged to the dollar and created by this team of like amazing economists with a very libertarian point of view. And Brazil boom and bust cycles ended. Constant inflation ended, at least for that time. Balance of payment crisis and abrupt currency depreciations got much better. Brazil currency is called the real, pronounced real. I put it that here because a lot of people in the team don't know how to say that, so I decided to include that note. And the word translates to real, royal. The president at the time, President Fernando Henrique Cardoso, started privatizing government companies, which brought the country tremendous advances and helped reduce public debt. A little overview on Brazil by the numbers. Brazil has 0 dependence on energy imports, and that was achieved in 2006. And all the energy that we use comes from drilling oil and ethanol production. Brazil is the #1 most populous country in Latin America, with 212 million people. More people speak Portuguese than Spanish in South America, and Brazil is the only country who speaks Portuguese there. 1.1 times the size of continental United States, just to tell you guys how big of a country this one is. It's also the sixth largest economy in the world, measured by purchasing power parity. So a little overview of the economic. Brazil is the #12 economy in the world in terms of GDP. And we felt about 4 numbers in the past 2 years because of the crisis, international with COVID and the internal one that Brazil has been facing. Our export partners are very similar to our import partners, but Brazil still exports more than imports. Our major industries are commodities. Innovation in Brazil. Looking at Brazil today, there are 3 main factors pointing to the permanent awakening of the market: high quality stakeholders in the market, maturity of venture community, and liquidity in the market. Unicorns are going public in Brazil. Some of those unicorns are the top startups to watch. Nubank, a bank company, Quinto Andar, a real estate company, and eBanks, which is IT company. Okay, so getting to my point here. Brazil economic troubles, initially thought to be temporary, like a little downturn before we started playing host for the World Cup in 2014. Brazil started facing the worst recession in more than a century. As the political crisis worsened, investment levels and consumer confidence suffered, leading to a 3.9% drop in GDP in 2015 and another 3.6% decrease in the following year. At that year, Brazil was the #7 biggest economy in the world. We are almost like 7 houses down the road for that. Corruption probes have you guys heard about those scandals like Petrobras and Mensalão and things like that? This year, all these scandals came up to the light, and they reached the highest levels of Brazilian government. The president, the former president, and dozens of cabinet officials and senators were arrested and are in jail still. And that is not exclusively to that time or that government. That's an ongoing system where corruption and government are basically synonymous in Brazil. International crises also ripple huge effects in Brazil, like a tsunami, waves of global money printing and borrowing inside of the country makes Brazilians feel very hard in economic crisis outside of Brazil. Mostly if this crisis comes from the US. What happens normally is like this cycle, this is snowball. They incentivize people to borrow money, to spend money, so the economy gets like warm up. And once a crisis outside of the country happens and exports stop, and some people lose money or some people stop buying things, the entire system down to that stops working. People start defaulting on their payments. Banks don't receive the money, banks don't pay the money. And most importantly, the federal government cannot pay their bills. Brazil has a huge foreigner debt. And once the money that it is the reserve currency of the country, the dollar, loses value because of printing of money, like it happened in 2008 and right now again in the US, all the savings that the government has loses value. And once that money loses value, we cannot pay our debts like we should pay. So international agencies that rate risks of investment also get Brazil a downgrade, and then foreign investments stop coming into Brazil. So it's just this huge cycle of problems that doesn't seem to end. Corruption is government intrusion into market efficiencies in the form of regulations. This is the Senate and the, how you say in English, the House of Representatives in Brazil. So this building, it's the way it is with this structure facing up. So the government could hear the people, right? But funny enough, this structure, this entire city, which it is today the capital of Brazil, the name is Brasília, was built in the middle of the country, far enough from every other state capital, so no protests could come walking to the new capital. The city was personally picked and chose to be in the center, furthest away from people, but the reference of listening to people is there. I don't know if they are following, but it's there. Government control over money. The power to tax involves the power to destroy. Facebook reminded me a couple of days ago of this picture that I posted in 2014 after a government speech. The president said that there was no, sorry, I'm reading Portuguese and trying to remember the name in English. There was no inflation, sorry, in Brazil. And the inflation was 6.5% at that time. And they just say there is no inflation. So it's really hard to operate when you don't really know what's going on. Inflation is a tax and it hits the poor hardest. So government through inflation and tax can destroy the poor. Today, a small population controls a large and growing portion of the world's wealth. Poverty continues and inequality grows wider. When money loses value rather than serves as a store of it, more productivity gains flow to investors and not to employees and savers. Is blockchain the solution? Decentralization through blockchain is the off-ramp of this centrally planned destruction of the poor. So we believe it is. The blockchain is the solution. Decentral banking introduces transparency. It is reliable, it is global, it's secure, it's sustainable, and removes the political influence and central planning that destroys currencies and destroy countries and lives the way we see in Brazil. So I listed here the main crypto benefits. For me, it's like deflationary, money gains value. It's transparent, it's trustless, it's peer-to-peer, It's cheaper, it's borderless, and improves crowdfunding, allowing like foreign investments to get to people in any country. Free market empowers the consumer, not the ruler. And blockchain allows for a free market. The unit proposition. Okay, unit is spearheading in the build of a new economy engine. I believe that with what we are proposing here, providing tools to make it easy to build your own token, we are going to enable decentralized banking and free market. Fundamentally, we are designing this to catalyze the token economy and widespread adoption of tokens for use, and not only one unit with another project, but like inside of the unit ecosystem. The BRLU, in this decentralized stable token, the decentralized stable token issued by a unit network. For Brazil, it's going to be the BRLU. The Brazilian currency will be a stable coin on a unit network, like other stable coins, USDU, EURU, and many others. That will give Brazilians liquidity outside of the bank system. And that helps our system, the unit system, limit volatility that has been experienced in other crypto projects. The money will be held on the unit blockchain, and BRLU can be traded on a unit network for other tokens. Also, like a little aside here, Unit is dedicating 2 city tokens to Brazilian cities, Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo. São Paulo is the biggest city in the country, and Rio de Janeiro is the most popular one. Brazilians and crypto. A recent research that I found interviewed a lot of Brazilians, and 48% of those interviewed wanted crypto to be adopted as a national currency. That was following the news of El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender. So people could be just very excited about that. But in this chart that you guys can see here, Brazilians are the number 2 of the responders who admitted owning or have owned cryptocurrencies. So I think people in Brazil are tired of their government. People in Brazil are tired of lack of opportunity because of lack of good economic policies from the governments. I believe a country like this can be like the number 1 in adoption of cryptocurrency, because they are so big and they need that so much. And at the same time, they have a huge economy. People in Brazil, there's a lot of money in Brazil. There's a lot of richness in Brazil. So it's a better case study than little countries that we have so far using Bitcoin as a legal tender. I can't wait to see that happening in Brazil. Thank you for listening to me.